what's up? This is my idea for a third installment in the Hero of Time, Ocarina of Time rather, Zelda franchise. So this game will start exactly right where Majora's Mask left off. Well, not exactly, but pretty much right after the events of Majora's Mask, Dawn of the New Day. Right after the mask salesman disappears, goes on his adventure. About, I don't know, a few months after that, Link will suddenly fall into a deep sleep. Now obviously this has been done, I'm pretty sure this has been done in Link's Awakening, or it's obviously been done in Ocarina of Time, the first one. When he originally pulls the Master Sword, he goes to sleep for 7 years. Well, pretty much the reason why he will then randomly fall asleep, this time for 10 years, in this third game, is because while Ganondorf is in the Sacred Realm, he's locked in that room where the Master Sword is. The key to his escape is the Master Sword. Even though it is said that only the hero can pull the Master Sword, Ganon doesn't exactly pull it, but he attempts to pull it, and he he breaks it. He breaks the Master Sword. What this does is because Link and the Master Sword have such a strong bond together. When the Master Sword is broken, that's why Link falls asleep for 10, it could even be 10 to 15 years he'll fall asleep. Now, obviously when he falls asleep, he's in Tournament Field, so he's safe. And obviously the Skull Kid and the Mask Salesman go to his aid and, kind of keep him safe and look after him while he's sleeping. So, obviously, when Ganon breaks the Master Sword, he manages to escape the Sacred Realm and get back to Hyrule, begin his evil ways once again, and he takes over Hyrule once again. At this point, we've seen what Ganondorf can do in Ocarina of Time with just 7 years. Well, now he's got 10 to 15, plus he knows the ropes, right? He doesn't have to take down Hyrule Castle and the Hyrulean guards and whatnot. So this time, he's pretty much just, if you notice the dark theme that happens when you go into Adult Link portion of Ocarina of Time, you can see like the dark tone, the difference between Young Link and Adult Link. So this game is going to follow that dark theme, but in my opinion, it should just be a little bit more darker. Like, there should just be no townsfolk in like Kokiri village and Kakariko village. Like, they're all like imprisoned, or something bad has happened, right? So it just creates a very like dire situation. Obviously, so now Ganon's, he makes his castle, Ganon's castle again. There's gonna be the sages are gonna be or they're gonna be imprisoned in something called the Sage Tower, or Tower of Sages, and that's gonna be located on the left of the castle courtyard, right before the Hyrulean gates. Also, there's gonna be 4 new temples. I'm trying to go through this as fast as I can, and obviously the editing and production value of this video is not going to be very great, but that's because I seriously don't have much time. I'm very busy right now, so I don't have time to put a lot of effort into this video. And I just want to get it done as fast as possible, because that would, obviously increase the chances and make the word of this game get out faster. Obviously, if I take my time with it, it's going to take longer to get out. But anyways, so there's going to be 4 new temples. You're going to be able to this new third game is going to take that. It's going to be amazing and just so nostalgic, because the Hyrule that you're going to return to is the same Hyrule from Ocarina of Time. Obviously now it's going to be much larger. It's going to obviously be in HD graphics. I would prefer Twilight Princess style graphics, or an upgraded Ocarina of Time style graphics. Also with this, it's obviously the Hyrule field and stuff. It's going to be bigger, not crazy huge, but the architecture is still going to look exactly as it is in Ocarina of Time. You're going to have Kakariko Village and the mountain and all this stuff is going to be exactly how it is, but obviously in HD upgraded graphics. And then there's going to be secret places and little pathways that are going to be new. Okay, so let's talk about the items. Let's talk about the plot. So obviously the plot is just like how it was before. Sages, but this time the sages, rather than, I believe they're hiding in the first one, or they need to be rescued with the medallions. This time they're going to be actually imprisoned. And it's going to be pretty much the same concept. You have to go through the temples again to unlock and free the sages from the Sage Tower. But once you unlock a medallion and stuff like that, you'll still have to go and bring it to the Sage Tower, and each sage has their specific own floor in the Sage Tower, and then you have to bring the medallion there, and then in order to free them, and then on each floor there's going to be more and more enemies. Sage Tower is going to be, it's going to be like just an enemy-filled temple itself, and it's just going to be like, it's going to be quite difficult to get through because there's going to be so many enemies and stuff like that. And then you're going to have the original temples that were in Ocarina of Time, but then you're also going to have 4 new temples. So back to the plot though. So Link eventually wakes up 10 to 15 years later. This could be either the Master Sword restores itself, or maybe some sort of maybe the mask salesman or someone gets a hold of the Master Sword and restores it, and then this allows Link to wake back up after the 10 to 15 years. And then when Link wakes up, he obviously they ask him if he's okay, the Skull Kid and the mask salesman ask him if he's okay, and if he can recall anything. He says no, he just says that he passed out that one day. Oh, he doesn't say anything because he's Link, but you get the point. Then those 3 then venture from Termina Field back into Hyrule through the Lost Woods, and there's a lot of enemies there. There's gonna be, because this is the thing, because there's been so much time that Ganon was able to just run free. His minions are just gonna be, they're gonna be scattered. The whole Hyrule is gonna be completely in a dark, completely taken over by these enemies, Ganon's minions and Ganon, right? So Kakariko and Kokiri Village, rather than having the townsfolk of those places running around, or they're scared inside like they do in the second portion, adult Link of Ocarina of Time. They're gonna be filled with enemies that like the lizards, the Skeletor guys and stuff like that are literally just because they've taken over at this point, right? So when Link gets into the Lost Woods, there's going to be enemies, and then that's when they split up. So Skull Kid goes his ways, Mask Salesman, and then Link obviously goes, and then that's when the actual game starts. Now, let's get into the items. The items, you're going to have pretty much all your items that you have in Majora's Mask, minus the masks, all the 24 masks. You're not going to have those, but you're going to still have the Deku mask, Zora mask, and Goron mask. And with these masks you can transform at any time, so this is going to give a lot of replay value and a lot more sort of variance in the gameplay as you're going through this game, this third installment. So you can use the Deku mask and Zora mask just like you did in Majora's Mask, but you can use it in this new game. You're also going to have the golden hookshot that you get from Gerudo Fortress. You're going to have the hero's bow from the Swamp Temple. You're going to have your original base items right at the start. And then there's also going to be some new items that you can get along the way. And just one thing about the the 3 masks. I believe that the Deku mask should be changed a little bit. I believe that Deku mask should be, you should kind of grow limbs. Like, you should, the look of the Deku Link, it looks perfect, but the height and stuff like that is perfect. I just believe he should just have a little bit more limbs, like, his arms and stuff should just be a little bit longer, and he should take on more of the physique of Skull Kid, right? And he should also use and be able to equip a Kokiri sword and shield, and use different items as Deku Link. I just believe this will be, a great upgrade, because Deku Link in Majora's Mask, it's kind of useless in a way. Like, you only really use it to fly around, right, in those little flower things. So a little bit of change there. And then in addition to that, I also believe that it should take on more of a light, because Deku Link is like a leaf. He's light as a leaf, so he should have like increased speed, obviously no falling damage, and like it should utilize that. And then in terms of the Zora mask and the Goron mask, those are perfect as they look. The looks are perfect, the attacks are perfect, but just add more attacks, right? Like the Goron only has that little like punch combo. He should have like way more combos, and then the Zora mask as well should have like more kicks and different combinations also. But in terms of their like rolling attack for the Goron, and then like the magical shield and boomerang fins that the Zora have, that's perfect, that stays. So then we get into the newer items. Obviously creating new items for the Zelda franchise is no easy feat, so mine are not particularly amazing, and they're not even new items. They're already just Nintendo's existing, other items that were from other Zelda games. But well, for one of the new ones, I believe that a one-handed crossbow. Now, I believe that Link should be able to have there should be like two squares of different items, different item slots that you could throw in addition to the C items that you can see in the top right corner here of this gameplay. And I apologize for this awful gameplay of Link just yawning here, but like I said, I don't have much time. But yeah, so in addition, there'll be two slots. So like right up there, you see the green and blue circle with Link. He has his green for the sword, and then A for another attack. Just picture those as two squares, and you can put any one-handed items in there. So let's say you could put a sword, and then you could put another sword. So you could be using like the Great Goron sword, and then like the Master Sword is a dual wield, or you could use two shields, or you could use the standard shield and sword, or you could use a sword and then a crossbow, like the one-handed crossbow of the new item that I'm about to explain. And then in addition with the new crossbow, there'll be two different arrows. The two different arrows will be the twine arrow and explosive arrow. Explosive arrow is basic. It's just pretty much like a bomb. An explosive arrow. It's been done before. It's pretty easy to explain. But the twine arrow is kind of a new concept. It's been done in other games, but pretty much it'll be a two-sided arrow that Link can shoot, and it'll just allow him to. It'll just create like a rope, like twine, that Link can then glide down if it's in like a slope, or he could just like climb across. It'll just help him get to like higher places, or like across where like the hook shot wouldn't. Next item is the magical leaf from Wind Waker. I believe that it'll work just like how it did in Wind Waker, except you can glide endlessly. It won't use your magic just to glide. Only if you wanna float upwards and fly up, that will require magic. I apologize if this microphone is picking up too much of a buffer, like if I'm too close to it. But yeah, so Magic Leaf is the second new item. Third new item is Pegasus Boots from A Link to the Past from the Super NES in Zelda. This one is pretty straightforward. Pegasus Boots will work just like they did in the SNES Zelda, but you can jump. Like as you're running, you could like, let's say you're just picture like a new older Link, adult Link, sprinting through Hyrulean field, or yeah, Hyrule field, enemies scattered across, and you can like just keep sprinting, and then you could jump, and then once you land again, you'll keep sprinting, continue to sprint. And then in addition to just your normal jump that you'll get, there'll also be the feather from Link to the Four Swords Link. You get I haven't played Four Swords in so long, but you get this feather that allows you to double jump. That will be another new item into this, and then that'll just be great because you can just do like different combos. Like picture just sprinting through Hyrule Field, Pegasus boots. You jump once, you double jump again with the feather, and then you just like bring out the magical leaf, and then you can just like glide or continue to fly, then drop the leaf, and then like do like a sword attack. Like it'll just be the dynamic that it'll add to the gameplay will just be amazing. Not to mention the other masks. But then you're gonna have what are the other new items? I mean, there's a bunch of items that you could pretty much add to this. Obviously, that could be up to Nintendo, the developers. I haven't really anticipated. I'm more so just am focused on like the plot and just wishing and hoping that this game would get made, because man, it would be so amazing, especially at the ending, because I have a really amazing ending. Like a really cool new part between Ganondorf and Link that happens at the final fight, and it's really epic, and I'll get to that soon. But pretty much from here on, and then I could speak about the 4 new temples. With the new, for more items, there'll also be like obviously new swords, and one of the new mechanics that I would be cool is like as you're going through Hyrule again, like so you start with the Majora's Mask items, but you don't start with the Hyrule, the Ocarina of Time items, right? So as you're going through, like if you stumble upon your old bow that you get in the Forest Temple originally, you could choose to either keep the hero's bow from Majora's Mask that you get as your starting item, or you could choose to have the bow that you get from Forest Temple, and like it'll just add kind of like a new, like, so each Link, each different player will have like his own little style, so to speak, and then like as you're going through, you'll have the shield that you get in the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time, or the shield that you get in Majora's Mask, which will be your base, your starting up shields. And yeah, you could just choose to keep them both, or you can choose just to discard one, keep one, and so forth. So like as you're going through, there'll be like hidden items, like secret items that will be your old items that you got originally in Ocarina of Time, and they'll just be scattered across in different places. So now it brings up to the 4 new temples that I was talking about. Okay, so the 4 new temples, it's going to be the Iron Temple, the Bone Temple, the Swamp Temple, or Reptilian Temple. It could be Reptilian or Swamp Temple. And then, what's the last one? No, wait, that was 4. Wait, Stone Temple, Iron Temple. Yeah, and pretty much these are themed based on Ocarina of Time enemies. So the Stone Temple is going to be the temple, and the leader, the final boss, is going to be a huge like leader of, I don't know their name, but in Ocarina of Time in the Forest Temple, those big dudes that carry the spear, that use spears as their weapon, and they guard the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time as a Dull Link. Those big dudes that go roar, and they charge you if you go in their path. Those guys will be the Stone Temple, like that. That's the theme for the Stone Temple. For the Bone Temple, it's the Skeletor guys. I don't even know I just call them the Skeletor guys. You originally first fight them in Ocarina of Time in the Forest Temple. When you get up, when you're on that elevator thing, and then you fight the Skeletor guys. I believe you fight 2 or 3 of them there. Those guys, there'll be the leader of the clan for those guys will be the final boss for the Bone Temple. And then like obviously I don't have these temples mapped out in terms of like their design and stuff. Like that'll be up to Nintendo or the developers, but there'll be new puzzles and stuff like that. That'll be cool. And then the iron will be based off the Iron Knuckle, which the Iron Castle Temple will be it'll be located in like the Gerudo, like around the Gerudo Valley sort of place. And with this, it was originally like a Hyrulean castle that then gets taken over when Ganon starts taking over by Iron Knuckles. And then in terms of this, like the old king of this castle will have emerald armor, which after you defeat the final leader of the Iron Knuckle in this Iron Temple, the king of this temple that is imprisoned there will then give you emerald armor, which is like the best armor that you can get in this game. Which I just mentioned that because that was another item that I didn't mention earlier. And then yeah, with the swamp, what's cool about the swamp or reptilian temple is obviously this themed after the lizards that you fight in Ocarina of Time. And what's cool about this temple is it will be located like if you look at Lake Hylia in Ocarina of Time, like it's a pretty small section of the map. But obviously with this new installment, it'll be way bigger. But because of the dark times, it will be swamp. Like it'll just be covered in swamp. So there'll be the swamp there, and then it goes into the swamp forest, and then from the swamp forest you keep going, and then there's the swamp temple or reptilian temple, like I said, and then further down to the right will be the bone temple. So those are 4 new temples. Obviously, if you guys, or obviously the developers, can contemplate up new temples in addition to these 4, that would be cool too. So let's get to the controls. Obviously you could add more items. Like a really cool items would be from the Super Nintendo Zelda, the 3 medallions. Like, dude, just picture in 3D Twilight Princess New Zelda using the Hero of Time and using those medallion attacks, but in a 3D format. Like how, like, I don't know, that just sounds epic to me, because they're really cool to use in the Super Nintendo Zelda, but specifically, like, if you were to use them in this game, so much fun. So I mean, obviously there could be way more items, but now let's move on to the controls. I believe that you should have the Skyward Sword style controls in addition to the standard Ocarina of Time Classic Controller Pro controls. Like, you should have just the option. Like, Skyward Sword, I actually loved Skyward Sword, even though it's like kind of like argumentative whether it's an amazing Zelda or not. I loved it, and I did like the controls, but it would be nice to not only have great controls like that with the motion control, but also just the standard, obviously, GameCube controller or something else. So you should have, options in terms of control. And just one more thing before I mention, before I go to the end plot and the other stuff that I'm just going to mention is, so we see adult Link in Ocarina of Time, and I'm pretty sure he's like 19 or 20 years old. I'm pretty sure he's around that age. I'm not for sure on his exact age, but then with this Zelda, because it'll be 10 to 15 years later, we'll get to see an adult Link that's older, right? So he'll look a little bit older, maybe look a little bit, I don't know, taller, bigger. It's obviously, that is completely optional, but I don't know, I believe it would be kind of cool to see, because he'll still look exactly like adult Link, but just maybe a little bit different. Or as you progress through the game, maybe he can kind of get older as he's going through it. It's just an optional, but I don't know, I just thought it'd be cool. So like a mid-20s Link rather than just a 20-year-old Link, so he looks a little bit older. Okay, so now on to the final battle, the good part. So after you free the sages from the Sage Tower, and then eventually they break down, I don't know, the door or something to Ganon's castle. You then go into Ganon's castle. You make your way up just like you did in Ocarina of Time. But then the final battle. So this is where it gets good. This is the epic part. So obviously Ganondorf and Link will have her amazing dialogue, because, this is like, it'll be like, after so long, Ganondorf really believed that Link was just gone and never going to return. Then he finally returns. He's a little bit older. Ganondorf's obviously out for revenge and is actually kind of excited to see Link because he wants to try out his new power. And that brings me to the next part. So, if you notice at the end of Ocarina of Time, or Ocarina of Time, I always mispronounce that, but Zelda gets captured at the end of it, right, when she reveals that she's Sheik. So Ganondorf only had like a bit of time to try to, capture and harness the power of wisdom, the Triforce of Wisdom from Zelda. Now that he knows Sheik was Zelda, and he can get a hold of Zelda so much easier in this one. He's been in Conquer and in control for like 10 to 15 years now. He was able to steal the Triforce of Wisdom from Zelda, and now that's made him, it's given him a final power, a final form like we've never seen it before. So he doesn't reveal this right at the start of the fight, so you fight him as his just Ganondorf form, and the basic amazing fight. It'll be like a remake of the original Ocarina of Time Ganondorf fight that you originally fight him, hitting his energy blast back at him. Obviously there'll be like, he'll have different patterns now. He'll do a little bit more of attacks, he'll fly around a little bit more, but then after you defeat him at that, he'll again, but this time he won't be weak and like, he won't be coughing up his like green phlegm or whatever he does after you defeat him this time, because he's not even, like, that didn't even phase him because he's so much more powerful now. So then he starts laughing, he brings down the ceiling just like he does in Ocarina of Time. Oh, sorry, wait a second. I don't know, I used to have Windows Movie Maker, but I don't have any editing software right now, so I'm trying to just do this in one take, so I apologize if it's like, if I'm stuttering or whatnot. So then at that point, he brings down the ceiling, and he starts laughing, and then he announces to Link that he harnesses now the power of wisdom, the Triforce of Wisdom, that he got it from Zelda. And then like you see Zelda there, and she's imprisoned, and she's like all weak and stuff because she doesn't have the wisdom Triforce, and she's just been imprisoned for like the last 10 years. So I mean, she's pretty done at this point. But so then this is the second phase of the battle, and Ganondorf he turns into a Ganon form, but it's not like a large, like Hulk like you do in the second fight in Ocarina of Time. This one is just like a new, improved, more of a like, he's just like, it's Ganon form, but it's like, it's a little bit small, a little bit, obviously way stronger, and he's like able to maintain, his speed and whatnot. So this second phase of the fight happens at the start, or at the top rather, of Ganon's castle, just kind of like how it does, but rather than him destroying his own castle and it drops down, it's kind of like Wind Waker, how you have that final fight at the top of the castle. That's what'll happen here. But then this is what happens. So because now Ganondorf has the power of wisdom, he's way too strong for Link. Like even the hero of time can't even phase him, because he's just too strong. Like, he was already strong enough with just the Triforce of Power, but now, because he has wisdom also, he's like insanely strong. So no matter what, you're fighting an uphill battle as Link, and you just can't even do it. Even if you were just like MLG rank 1 pro, you can't beat Ganondorf in the second phase. And then what'll happen is, either after like a time limit, or after he gets you down to like 1 heart, he'll then like hit you to the edge of Ganon's castle, and then this is when it gets epic. So then he'll say something like how he longed for this day, how he finally, the day that he will kill the hero of time. And then he winds back and he does like a final attack and hits Link right off the top of Ganon's castle, and then Link's about to plummet to his demise. But then as he's falling through the air off Ganon's castle, flying just from Ganon's attack, then the wise owl then grabs him, catches him, and starts flying and gliding him back down to Hyrule Field. And then he brings him down to Hyrule Field, and then all the sages are there. Maybe some new characters and others will be there that Link saves along the way from the new temples and whatnot. And then it's the place that the owl rescues and brings Link to is right in front of the gates, right in front of that opening cinematic when you first see Ganondorf, or when Link first sees Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time. So exactly where it began, it's gonna end. And so he brings him down there. The sages and the other characters are there because they were watching the fight happen from down there. They obviously can see on top of Ganon's castle, and they were trying to make out and see what was happening. So they're ready there. They use their power and restore Link's health. So now he's like back up to full health because Ganon just, whooped him with his newfound power. And then Ganon's just like toying. Ganon obviously sees the owl, rescue him, grabs Zelda, and brings him down and flies him and Zelda. He grabs Zelda and then he flies down to the crowd of sages and Link and stuff to finish him off. And Ganondorf's all like, he's just laughing and like he's just having so much fun with it because he knows his new power is just too much for Link. So Ganondorf is like, oh fine, you want me to destroy your hero in front of you, that's fine. You then engage in another battle. But again, after the second battle, just like on top of the Ganondorf's castle, Link can't do it. They're just too much power. But as he gets down in energy, this is the epic. This is the best part of the game. Okay, so this is what happens. So this part is a very dramatic moment. Like you can see the look on the sages. Like they've just been like in prison for the last 10 years. Like they were just wishing the hero of time would return, and now they're seeing him just getting dismantled by Ganon because his newfound power is just too much. They know it's the end because now just they can see that Link just has no chance versus this new improved Ganon. So then at this point, this is the epic part. So Ganondorf is just about to completely finish Link at this point. He's about to kill him. He's blasted the sages away and put an energy blast on them so they can't help him. There's no one that can help him at this point. But then you just hear, then a cinematic will happen right when Ganondorf's about to deliver the final blow, and it cues the music from Termina Field. The dun 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 dun. Okay, I'm off about that, but the Termina Field music then starts to play, and then you just see the happy mask salesman jogging and rushing to the crowd, and you just see him running. Maybe he could show his shoes first, and then you just see him running through Hyrule Field towards the crowd. He gets up close enough to Link and Ganondorf. He looks at Link, and he says, he's like, Link, for Termina Field and Hyrule. Here, and he throws him, obviously none other than the Fierce Deity's mask. He throws it to him, Link grabs it, catches it, immediately throws it on. Then that epic, mask animation happens just like it does in Majora's Mask. And then, so Link then transforms into Fierce Deity's mask, or Fierce Deity form. And then, so as the animation of the mask happens, it just goes from Link's feet up until his head. And then he's just, it's exactly Fierce Deity, just like he was in Majora's Mask in HD. And Link just goes, he just laughs because now he knows that Ganon's in for it. and he can actually put up a fight now. So now, with the Fierce Deity's mask, Link then goes and fights Ganon. Now he can actually put up a fight immediately. As soon as the mask is put on, the cinematic is still in effect, and he uses those blue energy disc attack, and then you actually see Ganondorf get pretty damaged from it. So then the final phase of the battle will ensue. Now, it's optional. You can make the Fierce Deity's mask be the complete counter to Ganon's new power, and just Fierce just has a pretty good advantage versus him, or because Ganon was so strong prior to the Fierce Deity's form that it'll be like a pretty even matchup, and then so that'll be the final fight. Link, obviously you can guess what'll happen once you defeat Ganondorf. He's then done for good. You kill him, you take him out, and that's it. That's the new game. And then just one thing I want to mention before I end this video here. At the end of Majora's Mask, when Link has that final conversation with the mask salesman, he says, at the start of this game, it starts with that. And I just wanted to mention a little backstory about Majora's Mask. So what a cool feature, or what a cool thing that the mask salesman can reveal to Link is that as he was in that hallway, walking towards the clock tower, right before Link sees and meets the mask salesman for the first time, for the first time in Majora's Mask, right before, as he's walking down that hallway in Majora's Mask, there's it's kind of like a trippy sequence where I don't know, Link's view is kind of distorted, and it kind of just looks like, I don't know what it is. It's like Link leaving Hyrule and then going into Termina or something like that. But what that sequence and distortion could be the mask salesman placing and casting a spell onto Link that would make Link see the townsfolk of Clocktown as if their appearance would be of those of Hyrule. So what I mean by, pretty much, so at the start of this game, when the mask salesman reveals this to Link, he just says he apologizes and says that he casted this hallucination spell onto Link to awaken a sense of urgency in Link that he would treat this new mission that the mask salesman was just about to announce to him, treat it as if Termina Field was Hyrule. So because the mask salesman's home is Termina Field, so he wanted, pretty much, this sounds pretty confusing, but it's just kind of a backstory and to kind of clear up as to why when Link goes into Termina Field, the carpenters and all these dudes are the exact same characters that they were in Ocarina of Time. Obviously this is not the reason why. It was just because the development cycle for this game was probably just rushed and they couldn't make new characters. But I don't know, I just found it, that was always the one thing that I really didn't like about Majora's Mask, was that the characters were exactly like how they were in Hyrule, but then as you talk to them, I don't know, for me it just broke so much immersion. So I just wanted to make that. So yeah, as he's walking down the thing, the mask salesman reveals that so the hallucination spell that he casts upon Link is, there's actually Clocktown townsfolk, they're actually there. But what this spell does is just make the Clocktown folk, rather than them looking how they actually look, they look as if they're the characters from Hyrule, from Link's home. And then he does that, so Link kind of just takes the mission more seriously, because the mask salesman knows that with the Majora's Mask and the Skull Kid and the 3-day time mechanic, that time is dire, time is of the essence. So he does that, and I just thought it was a cool way to kind of explain why Link sees those guys as characters. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I mean, I probably had more to talk about the new game. There's probably some stuff that I'm forgetting. Oh, just one more thing. So, oh yeah, actually, this is a really cool part. Actually, thankfully, I recalled this. Okay, so pretty much once you beat the game, you get the Fierce Deity's Mask now. So now when you start your new file, you unlock a new difficulty. You unlock the same difficulty that you just beat the game through. But then now, whenever difficulty you choose, you'll have the Fierce Deity's Mask right at the start. So this will just add another layer of replay value for the game. So now you'll have Fierce Deity's Mask, so you can go through and fight the bosses and stuff like that. And just one more emphasis on the reworking of Fierce Deity's Mask form. The look is completely perfect. I mean, Fierce Deity's Mask looks so cool. Like the actual design of how he looks, perfect. His sword, perfect. He doesn't need a shield, but rather than not being able to use any other items, obviously this Fierce Deity's Mask form in this new game he should be able to use the other items. He should not only be able to use the other items, but there should be more emphasis on his strength. Like when you're in Fierce Deity's form, you should automatically get like a 40% damage reduction in terms of defense. In terms of strength, it's a huge strength boost. So let's say another idea I had for a new item is Din's Inferno Greatsword, and this is the absolute best sword that you could actually get in this game. And it'll be like Din's sword. It'll be like this huge magma sort of looking sword that, like I said, it's the best sword. It's like the Great Fairy Sword of this game. It's like the Fierce Deity Sword of this game. It's like the Goron Sword of this game. So you'll get this after you could either get this by finding some secret item, some secret thing, or you can get it by completing the final difficulty for this game. But what'll be cool about this is it's usually a two-handed sword. So if Link uses it in just adult form, he'll have to use it as two-handed, so he won't be able to use like a secondary shield or crossbow or something. But then as Fierce Deity Link, he'll have such a strength boost from the mask that he'll be able to use it as a one-hand. So like your final like crazy dual wielding combo could be Fierce Deity Sword and then this new Din's Inferno Greatsword, and you could just like one shot, not one shot, but you can just do so much more damage to like enemies and stuff like that, and you'll have like special attacks and stuff like that. What else? Yeah, I just wanna go into one epic scene that I kind of contemplated up. So as you're returning back to the Forest Temple, in this new game, there's gonna be those guys that usually guard the temple, just like they did in Ocarina of Time. You get by them, and then where that war point is in Forest Temple, right before the Forest Temple, that war point, that'll be there, and then there'll be a statue of the Hero of Time. But it'll obviously be broken down, and like the head will be off of it because the Ganon's minions have taken over at this point. So, but there'll be a huge guy of the Stone Temple guy, the guy that's usually there. The guy that those guys that you fight right before Forest Temple. That last guy, he has like a giant mace, and he hits the ground, and it does like this like mud effect that like hits Link back. There'll be one of those guys there, but it'll be like an even stronger. He'll be like a leader clan, like an upgraded thing. And that's another thing about the enemies in this. The enemies in this game will be kind of like follow the mechanic of that Wind Waker brought, where if you notice in Wind Waker, the different enemies, like the Iron Knuckles, like there's different like tier lists of how strong they are. Like there's the crimson armor, and then there's like the golden armor and stuff like that. There should also be that for all enemies in this. For all the enemies in this game, there should be like, for the lizard, there'll be like the standard lizards, and then there'll be like armored lizards, and then there's like another tier list, and then there's like the leader lizard that is at the final bosses in the reptilian temple. And so yeah, so there'll be like an upgraded the tier list that's right below the leader of these giant dudes. I should have looked up their name, but the giant dudes that protect the forest temple in Ocarina of Time. And he'll just be he'll be sitting in like a chair, and then he'll see Link just show up out of nowhere. And it's surprising to any enemy to see Link, because you know they haven't seen anyone ever attempt to try to attack them or you know offend them or anything in so long, because you know Hyrule has been in complete destruction and completely taken over by Ganon. So like he'll just be sitting there guarding the forest temple, and then he'll see Link, and he doesn't know Link, but he looks at the statue, the dismantled statue that was once there. He looks at the statue, he looks at the statue's head, he sees that it looks like Link, and then he looks back at Link, and then he kind of just like, I don't know, he gets his spear ready or his thing, and then you engage into a battle. You defeat him, you then go up to the forest temple, and then if you notice, I should actually like show you guys in this game right here, like with this gameplay, but if as you're going into the forest temple the first time in Ocarina of Time, you get in, and then there's like that little cinematic, and it shows the pose. It shows the 4 pose, and then the lanterns go like out, and then they go in their 4 different corridors, like the 4 different ways. Well, in this new Zelda, that will still happen, but in that main room there'll be a whole bunch of enemies, and they're kind of just, and they're all in like a huddle, and they're watching a Skeletor guy fight a lizard, and it's just like a brawl. Like they're just, because they're so bored, right? They don't have anything to do in there, because no one is ever opposing against them, because it's been 10 years of devastation caused by Ganondorf and his minions. So they're bored in there, and there's like 4 Skeletor guys, and then there's like 10 lizard guys, and they're all like huddling around, and they're watching one of their own lizard fighting a Skeletor guy. And then so when Link shows up, and then he gets in, and then they're fighting, they're cheering on their guys, and then they just look over, and all of them just look over and see Link, and then they obviously stop fighting and then start to charge Link and stuff like that. But just like an open cinematic like that, it'll be so cool, because you can go into these places, and then you could do that, and then you obviously fight them. You could do it as the Deku Scrub, you could do it as Fierce Deity Link, and then once you get these, like the Fierce Deity Sword and then the Din's Inferno Sword, you can go in there and just completely destroy them. I mean, if you had the medallions, I don't know, I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture here of just how epic this game would be if it would actually get made, which I hope it does. And then that pretty much is it, guys. I mean, I probably could mention a few more stuff, but that's pretty much the gist of it. Guys, I highly doubt Nintendo is ever going to see this video, but it's up to you guys. I mean, if you guys like this concept, you guys would love to see this game get made, obviously definitely share it, favorite it, advertise it. I obviously don't want, I can't even get any money for pitching this idea. I don't want any money anyways. This is not my idea. I mean, this is Nintendo, man. Like, I guarantee that Nintendo has already thought up making a 3rd installment for the Ocarina of Time franchise. They just haven't got around to it. So I'm not making this to try to get famous or try to get anything. I'm just pitching the idea out there because me, as a Zelda fan, would love to see this game get made. Like, I don't know about you guys, I love the new 2 Zeldas, like especially the newer one with the huge map and stuff like that. It's a great game, but to me, I don't know, it doesn't have that Zelda essence to it. Like, in my opinion, the characters and the boss battles and stuff, like, it's just not Zelda to me for some reason. Like, I love the game, like, it seems like they just put a lot more effort and time into the grand scope of how big the map is and the different items and stuff like that. But like, to me, like, what sets Zelda apart from these other, like, you know, huge open thing games is like, it's the characters, man. It's the lore. It's the history of like Link versus Ganondorf versus Zelda, and like, I don't know. In my opinion, Ocarina of Time, why that game is just so like loved and it's just so amazing is because it's the characters, man. It's like, obviously it's the gameplay and stuff like that too, but like a big part of it is it's the music, it's the different temples, it's the enemies too. Like, the enemies in Ocarina of Time are badass. Like Skeletor dudes, the lizards, like the boss battles, like, it's just so epic. And I would love to see, you know, just bring that back in HD with the Deku scrub, you know, the Zora mask and stuff like that. Like, that to me would be just so much fun. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you guys would love to see this, just try to advertise it. I'm going to try to advertise this on different, you know, leaving comments and stuff, but I mean, there's only so much I can do as to try to advertise this video. But yeah, and yeah, guys, if you have any ideas or anything you guys would like to add to this potential game that would get made, just post it down. Like, post any of your ideas, or if you liked this about this idea, or you didn't like this item or whatnot. I would love to hear it. I'll respond and stuff like that. So yeah, guys, I mean, here's to trying to get this game made. Alright, later.